Welcome to The Bridge, a podcast for dental professionals featuring the insights and expertise of fellow dental professionals. Let's welcome our host, Steven Kuza.
Hello, everybody. My name is Steve Kuza. Thanks for joining the Bridge Dental Podcast. I'm your local financial advisor, also podcast host. And today we're joined by Dr. Jessica Ahn from Seattle, Washington. How you doing, Jessica?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for jumping on with us. And for those of you listening, Jessica is a dental practice owner in several practices. She is partners with PDS, Pacific Dental Services. You're going to learn a ton from her today. We're super excited to have you. So thank you for jumping on. Where are you located exactly?
I'm in Federal Way, Washington. It's about 30 minutes south of Seattle.
Okay. So there you go. And you said, we were just chatting before this. You said you are hiring, right?
I am, yes. I partner with Pacific Dental Services, like you said, Steve, and I own multiple practices in the Washington state. And we're always looking for doctors, and I'm also looking for partners. If you're interested in ownership, I'd love to meet you and talk with you.
Well, that's a great place to start. So, Jessica, tell the listeners, the Bridge Dental Podcast, where you're at today, and then this practice ownership with Pacific Dental Services, kind of how that came about.
Yeah, so I graduated dental school in 2013. So I can't believe it's been almost 10 years since I finished dental school. That was in Las Vegas, and I moved up here after graduation. My husband's from Seattle, so of course we ventured up here. And once I moved up here, I looked into Pacific Dental Services. They were just opening their first practice in this region. So I reached out and inquired about an associateship. At that time, there was no availability since they only had one practice. So I did some temp work here and there in private offices, and finally got an interview to possibly open a new de novo practice in Gig Harbor, Washington. So I went there, did my interview, and it was to be the solo and only provider.
Oh, wow.
And I just graduated. It was maybe like 6 months after graduation, and Gig Harbor, and we lived in North Seattle. So if you're not familiar with the Washington area, that's about an hour drive south from Seattle. And my husband worked in Seattle. But thankfully, my husband knew that it was something that I was really interested in. So we accepted the position and we moved down to Gig Harbor. And he commuted from Gig Harbor to Seattle for the better of, let's say, 4 years.
So let's, so you made him commute.
Yeah. I mean, he made me move to Seattle. I wanted to stay in Las Vegas. So it was a good trade-off.
Well, we're going to unpack that a little bit. We're going to come back to that. So you're not in the Gig Harbor practice today. That's not where you're at today, right? That you're at a different practice today.
Yeah. So
okay.
That was 2014 when we opened Gig Harbor. And a year later, I went into ownership of that practice. And then in a year after that, in 2016, I opened Silverdale office, which is 45 minutes further away from Seattle. And then in 2019, I opened this office, Federal Way Modern Dentistry. And a month later, opened Tacoma Smiles Dentistry. And after that, just been working and mentoring and I guess living the ownership dream.
That's so cool. So, well, I want to take a step back for a second. So you originally, you're not from the United States. You came from Guam, right?
Yes.
And you did you move to New Jersey? Is that correct? Or tell me about this. How old were you? I mean, you obviously weren't from here, so tell us a little about that.
Yeah, so Guam is a U.S. territory. It's an island in the Pacific. And it's a small area, and there's one University of Guam. And growing up, my mom always wanted me to be in the medical field, be a doctor. But I really found myself really working with my hands and being creative. And so dentistry seemed to fit all of those for me. And I knew that going to the university in Guam wouldn't quite lead me to that path.
Okay.
So I just started applying to every school that, we got information on. And I think I applied to maybe 15 colleges out of high school. And in New Jersey, Rider University, it's a really small college south of Princeton. They gave me the most scholarships and financial aid. So that's what I took. And that's where I spent my first semester of college. But it got really lonely because I didn't know anybody. People were going home for Thanksgiving break, and I had to stay in the dorms by myself. So I reached out to other friends, and I had friends in Las Vegas. And so I researched that a bit, and they were just opening their dental school in Las Vegas at that time. So I thought, let's make this change. And I went over to Vegas, finished school there, and got into dental school. So that's how Jersey came into my life.
So not only did you switch gears and move from Guam to New Jersey, then you decided to move across the U.S. and get from New Jersey to Las Vegas. Completely different, right, from the East Coast to the West Coast. And you attended dental school there. And you did this all on your own? Where did you, nobody lived with you in New Jersey, correct? Like your family wasn't there, and then you traveled from New Jersey to Las Vegas with friends only?
Yeah, I had friends there, so I just found an apartment. I worked part-time all throughout undergrad with a full-time schedule. So I just kept staying busy.
That's incredible. So are you an only child, Jessica? What's your family dynamic like? Okay. So you're used to the lone wolf, I'm going to do this on my own type of thing.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's just been me and my mom my whole life. And my mom has always worked to obviously support me and put me through school. So I think I just had that as a role model. So gotta hustle and gotta make it happen.
That's right. Well, I think that people can appreciate that, of course. And where's your mom now?
She lives with us now. So she's
beautiful.
Grandma. I have 2 boys, a 4-year-old and an almost 2-year-old. So she is a daytime nanny, and she takes care of my boys while I'm at work doing dentistry.
Oh, very cool. That's very cool. So let's go back to Las Vegas. So you get to Las Vegas, you decide that dental school is the route you're going to go. Was that early in your Vegas experience, or was that kind of post undergrad? Like when did you decide that you were really going to hit dentistry?
I always knew that I wanted to get into dentistry, and I made the move knowing that UNLV just opened the School of Dental Medicine.
Okay.
But like I said, I was working as well as trying to hold a full-time student load. So unfortunately, my grades suffered because I didn't have the ability to manage my time properly. So it took a while before I actually applied to dental school. I went and did post-grad and, took more advanced science courses to improve my GPA.
Yeah.
But yeah, I finally made it into dental school. I only applied to UNLV. I knew I wanted to stay there.
So you graduate dental school, and then what brought you to Seattle?
My husband. So I met my husband in Vegas. We actually grew up together in Guam, just in different circles. We knew of each other, never really hung out. He was a grade above me. And one day in Vegas, I ran into him and I was like, hey, I know you. He's like, I know you. And so we started hanging out. He was visiting from Seattle. And yeah, the rest is history. He actually moved to Vegas while I was in dental school.
Okay.
And after dental school, I returned the favor and I moved up to Seattle.
That's so crazy. To just randomly run into them. And then there you go. The rest is history. Love is in the air. So you guys get to Seattle, and this is kind of cool because from what you just said, you reached out when you graduated dental school. You reached out. You knew Pacific Dental Services was out there. didn't work out at first, and you came back and you finally got an interview, and next thing you know, they want to partner with you to become a practice owner. Walk us through that. Tell us what was going through your mind, if you can remember, and work through that.
Yeah. Well, with my part-time jobs in undergrad, I also worked in dental offices. So I had some experience in the front office and back office. I always knew I wanted to be an owner in a dental office. So when I came up to Washington and was given the opportunity with Gig Harbor, I went in all in. I knew I was going to be the only provider. So I made it everything that I could. I decided I was the one provider to help the patient that walks through the door, whatever their needs could be. Some days I was there till 9 p.m. because as a new grad, your skills and your speed just aren't quite there yet.
Right. Yeah,
so many days and many times I'd have to spend refining or redoing a work just to make sure I delivered, the right treatment for the patient. But that's how I went in. I just wanted to do as best as I could and give it my all. And I think just by having that goal, that mindset, I ramped up very quickly. Typically a new grad would see an average of like 6 to 8 patients and maybe not as efficient and not do as much, the word production comes into play because it is a business, right? And that's how you kind of see how well you're doing. And so maybe a new doctor isn't as productive, but within 6 months, I was already up in the ranks, producing, they have these tier systems with PDS because they have statistics and stuff. So it's kind of nice to see how you are ranked and how well you are doing. And so I did that pretty quickly, got great patient reviews. We didn't do a lot of marketing at the time because we're, still new business and people were just referring by word of mouth. And went all in and got the opportunity to partner with Pacific Dental Services.
And obviously that worked out well because you're, 6 practices later or whatever it might be. And you're doing a lot of mentoring, coaching, and helping young dentists kind of find their path. What's it like being on that side of the model where obviously you have a passion for the creative work of dentistry and working with patients and helping them, being an owner. So you have the practical side, you got the business side, and now you're on the mentoring and coaching side and basically giving back side. So what's that like? What do you like about it? That's obviously helped you grow in that area.
Honestly, Steve, when I started, obviously to grow a business, you do need an associate or a partner, another clinician, so that you have more availability for your patients. And I'm a very introverted person. I like to do things myself and just go all in. If there's a problem, I need to figure it out myself. So working with another provider was actually a huge challenge for me. I rarely wanted to share my work. I rarely wanted to review and talk with my associate. It was more like, I'll stay in my lane, you stay in your lane. And honestly, that's a disaster. It doesn't work that way. And it took maybe 3 years for me to finally let my defenses down, feel comfortable enough to be able to talk with a colleague. And I think once I let that go and realized where my struggles were, then all of a sudden, talking with other colleagues, other providers became more fun. We got to review treatment together, figure out how to manage patients together, and that just turned naturally into coaching. And just almost felt like overnight, all of a sudden, it was just like, oh my gosh, instead of losing associates turnover over turnover within like 6 months to a year, now, I have associates that have been with me anywhere from 3 to 5 years, which is awesome.
Oh, absolutely. And is that something that you worked on, whether it was in or outside of, your actual professional development? Maybe personally, did you work on it? Did you take any courses, or is that something you read about, or is that something you just decide to make a choice to be more open-minded to it?
I think it was all of the above.
Okay.
Of course, with Pacific Dental Services, there's the operational support. So they're going to obviously share with you, hey, it might be more beneficial if you can actually sit down and write a vision, a clinical protocol that you can share with your associates. So they have an idea of, what would work in your practices. And maybe it might be good to have like weekly check-ins and review charts together. So they'll suggest these things to you so that you have the tools to actually utilize. But it's really up to you to utilize those tools. And then, of course, my husband, he's been amazing throughout, my whole career, because he has been such a great support. So anytime I go home and I'm like, oh, I'm so frustrated, I can't believe I said this, or I wanted to say this, but I couldn't say it. It just came out, like nothing. Then we would sit and chat about it. And he's been in, the working world a lot longer than I had because I was in school. So he'd share some of his experiences and how he would have had conversations in those type of situations. So I had support from my husband, support from operations from PDS, and then really just life. Like sometimes you just have to go through those mistakes to realize, hey, this isn't going to work out. You got to make a change.
That's true. I can appreciate that. Whether you're an introvert or extrovert, tough conversations are tough conversations. So, and you can either avoid them, and you could probably do that with certain people you meet, but when you're running the business, you have to address things, or that could really hurt the overall morale of your office, your patient, right? It just comes off. So I can appreciate that. Eventually you got to face that and say, let's just have this tough conversation. And you kind of just live through it. And the first one might've been brutal. The second one was a little better, right? And you just keep getting better at navigating that discussion. Which is so funny because most people don't have those experiences. Most people don't have those kind of tough conversations because it's easier just to walk away and just, I'm not going to deal with that.
Yeah, so much easier.
Right. Well, so now with, I want to kind of chronologically move through your career at Pacific Dental. So you opened the first practice with them, and then this kept branching and you growing, and it was relatively quickly all the way up until, what was the most recent office? Was that 2019 or 2020 you opened your latest one?
2019.
So 2019, you're the owner of these practices. You have, vested interest in seeing them grow. And then the pandemic hits. Obviously, you had a partnership, so there was probably some resources available. But walk us through, what you were thinking, regardless of what was going on. Like, tell us how you experienced the pandemic.
My memory is a little hazy. I was pregnant with my second during that time. So, pregnancy brain is a real thing. But, I think I was lucky that I am partnered with Pacific Dental Services because unfortunately we did have to furlough several team members, several doctors, because we just couldn't see as many patients during that time. But the way they operated and handled things at first was a little scary and felt a little unfair. But as it all played out, everything worked out really well. And, we were able to bring back our team members, as needed. Of course, we've lost some team members, some doctors throughout that. The biggest challenge was we've lost all of our hygienists here in Washington. And we're still suffering from that. We still don't have hygiene in our practices. Or if we do or have the opportunity to hire a hygienist, the cost is too much at the time. But we're working through it. And, honestly, doing cleanings is great. At first, it was a little cumbersome, but it's a great time to catch up with your patients. And, oftentimes when we're doing a quick exam, we overlook things, and being able to do the cleanings help us, catch things a lot quicker. But yeah, I honestly don't remember too much about the pandemic. Just I knew it was, I remember it being stressful, but most of my days I was in the practice, just this one practice, Federal Way. And it was more of an on-call basis because we just saw patients for emergency treatment. And we made it okay at the end.
Absolutely. And it seems like, with the hygiene, dental hygiene, that's actually seems more of like a national between dental assistants and hygienists. Seems like a national problem for most practices these days. But that's interesting. Your approach to it. It's like, well, but your technical eye is seeing things that maybe you guys wouldn't have seen before, or catching something sooner, right? You may have caught it eventually, right? That cavity eventually will show up, but maybe you're able to catch that prior to, and maybe help them, create more preventative care. Would you say?
Yes. Yeah.
No, that's really cool. And what are specific parts of dentistry that you really enjoy of the procedural side? Top one or two, three things that you really enjoy doing.
Dentistry is always evolving.
Always fun, always evolving.
Yeah. And technology continues to grow. So currently I just purchased this 3D printer, the Sprint Ray. And I've always, since this office opened, we had the CBCT. So from going from Gig Harbor and Silverdale and then jumping into Federal Way with the CBCT, my, clinical repertoire has grown tremendously. The CBCT allows me to diagnose and see things a lot better, more clearly. So I've been doing a lot of root canals. I don't have an endodontist in this practice, so I do all the root canals for this practice. I was also, as we're getting back from the pandemic, I was also going through my other practices and doing root canals solely for those practices because we didn't have an endodontist. I'm also doing implant dentistry. With 3D printing, I get to print my surgical guides so I can do guided implants, makes things a lot more streamlined, more efficient, more accurate. I'm also printing dentures in-house. We can print models and do clear aligners for patients and a more quicker turnaround. Night guards, we can do same-day night guards. There's just so much. Dentistry is constantly growing, and the amount of CEs that have grown from the pandemic is vast, and social media has grown since the pandemic. So being able to connect with so many clinicians and being able to go to all these CEs so easily has just jumped my love for dentistry tremendously this past year.
I got to ask you this question because you're talking about continuing to grow your skill set, right? And I'm just thinking like add that to the pile. So, you're a family woman, you got 2 kids, you're a career woman, you have multiple practices, which we could call kids, right? Your business kids, but and you're also continuing to grow your skill in dentistry, which is getting, more detailed. There's more procedures that a general dentist can do. Obviously the technology there is new and you got to learn it. How do you do it? I mean, that's a simple question. Like if I'm listening to this, I'm like, how does she do all that? Like, how are you running the practice efficiently? Obviously I would assume maybe you have some help, but you talked about, having a vision for your practice, the planning protocol or the clinical protocols. Walk us through just how you're able to kind of sequence and create this cadence where you're able to handle all of it.
Honestly, like you said, the support. PDS has the support there. I have amazing regional manager. Each of my practices have talented office managers. I do have a partner in Gig Harbor now. So she is the main clinician at that office. And so she also helps with some of the mentoring of the associates in that practice.
Right.
And honestly, it's just learning time management. Being able to actually sit down and write a vision for the month. And what goals do you have for the month? And after that, trying to figure out, okay, in order to achieve those goals, achieve that vision, how am I going to fit that into my timeline? And you just make appointments and schedules, and you just go for it.
Do you have specific things in your calendar that are like, I got to do those that's my, think time. That's my family time. Do you carve those out and then your schedule, you kind of schedule around that, or what's that setup like?
I should. I really should. I should take my advice and do that. But I've always been one to work best under pressure. I've always been a procrastinator. So honestly, it's just, I know I have this long checklist to do. And thank God for the iPhone, right? It gives you, reminders of all of your appointments, and I just make it work.
Yeah, that is, you got to understand how you're wired too. The ideal calendar might not be ideal for you, because you could that'll become your procrastinating calendar.
Yes.
And working with your, back against the wall, you tend to get things done more quickly. It's an interesting thought process. I remember reading a book. They talked about I got a month to do the book report, but I wait till the last day because that's when I'm most efficient at doing it. So I don't recommend either way, just whatever way you're wired and works for you.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
In the perfect world, right, you would do something every day.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you just get that 3-4 hours of focus and you can do that tends to work best. So
yeah.
Tell us what you're looking forward in dentistry, whether it's career-wise, skill-wise. What are you looking forward to, Jessica? And what's next for you?
Honestly, my goals for this year, beginning part of this year, is really just to hone in more of those advanced skill set for myself, and sharing that journey with my associates, kind of documenting. We hold monthly study clubs, just me and my associates, and we go over cases, and I, reach out to different company reps to go over some of the products and showcase to my associates how, if you use this product, things can be a little bit more efficient. So really my goal is to continue to share that knowledge. And by the end of the year and, continuing on, I would like to see majority of my associates doing molar root canals, placing guided implants. I'm actually working with Dr. Katie McCann. I think you had a podcast with her. She holds a guided implant assisted course. And so we're working through the scheduling currently to get that scheduled up here so that my associates can take that course. And if I can, dentistry, like I said, is just always evolving. And with the technology with CBCT, if we can help our patients get the needed dentistry now versus waiting and referring to a specialist, and if that GP can handle it for that patient, it's such a better experience for that patient. They don't have to take more time off from work. They don't have to try to reorganize their schedule. They're here today. They're here and committed to get their oral health better. So if we're able to give them that service now, it's better off for that patient, but also helps grow these new doctors into a better clinician quicker. And we don't have to go through this hierarchy of, you don't have enough experience. You need at least, 2 years, 5 years of experience before you're really considered a great general dentist. I want to kind of squash that idea and really help these new grads just get in there and, do the best they can. I think this past year has shown me through social media and all these CEs, if we just put that time and effort into education, we already have the basics. Right. We can definitely grow quickly as long as there's someone there to help make sure things are going smoothly and we're providing, good clinical outcomes for our patients. And I'd love to be that part for my associates, and just I'm excited to see where that goes and how that will end. Yeah.
So you work with a lot of associates, and you're seeing this new dentist come out, right? With all this great new technology and access, what would you advise? What do you talk about with your young dentist? Like, what advice would you give to a new graduating dentist today as they're one, looking for their first associateship, or two, maybe looking to become a practice owner in the next couple of years? As you navigated that and as you're coaching them now, what advice would you have for them?
My advice would be just my experience. Just go all in, give it your all. You just have to, work hard, and you can play harder at the back end. And so, as a new doctor, you're not going to be seeing a lot of patients, right? Because you still have to grow your patient base. So at those downtimes, bring a typod on. Practice, practice, practice. Just going through dental school doesn't make you an expert clinician. You still need to develop the muscle memory, the hand skills. So anytime you can get, I urge you to go ahead and practice. Any teeth that are extracted, jump in there, do root canals, practice with the materials that we have. Review all the cases that we have in our, database. Look through the x-rays. Kind of check what your treatment plan would be, and review what the treatment plan was given. Is it similar? Is it not? If it's not similar, talk with the other providers in your practice and question, like, why did you treatment plan it this way? Because I thought this would be that. It doesn't mean you're right or they're wrong. It just opens up your mindset to realize that there are lots of other conditions, lots of other reasons and fits for the patient, for your time and the schedule. There's so many things that are going on that will dictate a provider's treatment plan. And you wouldn't know that just coming out of dental school, because your experience level, the amount of patients you've seen is so minimal. So the more questions, the more collaboration you have as a new doctor, that's what's going to take you to that next level. So that's what I talk about in my interviews, and that's what I search for when I am interviewing doctors, is their hunger. Are they hungry to learn? Are they really going to put that grit in, to make sure that they can get there quick? Or are they one to kind of just wait around and see what comes on their schedule, and they're just going to, take it one thing at a time, but not really spend the extra time to review all the tools given to them? PDS gives you all of this, videos. They give you all these CEs. They give you memberships to CERECDoctors.com for free. There's so many tools that they can utilize as a new doctor in the PDS supported system. But if they don't actually read it and utilize it, they're not going to do well.
That's interesting. I really appreciate you sharing that. And what you're looking for, ultimately, the advice you just gave is like, be resourceful. Obviously you're connected to a great organization. You guys are building a great culture, but you want people who are resourceful and are intentional, right? If I'm describing that accurately, but yeah. It is hard to find that. And if you're a young dentist looking to take that next step, you sometimes have to go outside your comfort zone, go find the answers, go find the questions that you need to ask, because it's hard for us. You're so busy, you're running so many different angles. It's hard for you to always bring up the next topic that's might not even be relevant to them because they're in this different stage. It's so important. I agree with you, for a young dentist to get after, be hungry, be intentional with your time even when you have downtime, and practice makes perfect, as they say. So, it's kind of cool, Jessica, because it's like almost very similar to sports analogies, right? It's like it's the practice that makes perfect in sports. All the times you practice by yourself and do the work yourself and watch the videos, then you come to the game and you're like, wow, how did you get so good? Right? And it's because you spent hours and hours practicing.
Exactly.
So
can I just capture what you said and then type it out? Because you verbalize that much better than my worthy description.
No. We're good. We're on the same page for sure. And listen, we recorded it, so we'll be able to, we can capture it and we can pump that on your website. Listen, it's been great to connect with you today. How can our listeners get engaged with you? What can we do to get them, if they want to talk to you a little bit more, either about your career path, PDS, and how you became so successful? What are these different areas they can connect with you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. My handle is @doctor spelled out .on. I just started that page. I'm trying to do fun reels and try to showcase my associates and the great things that they're achieving. Or you can email me directly at onjahnj@washden.com. Or obviously reach out to you and click on the link.
Yeah, no, we'll put that in the show notes as well. And maybe some final parting thoughts from you, Jessica. Whether you're a big reader, maybe just a big YouTube person. Nowadays, so many people get information from so many places. What do you like to do to get information outside of dentistry? Maybe it's a show you watch, but what is it that draws your interest?
I'm a dental nerd. Okay. So honestly, outside interest is still dentistry.
Tell us more about that. Is there something specific that you spend your time in?
Unfortunately,
besides X-rays,
Instagram. Besides X-rays, it's Instagram. Really, just following all the Instagram influencers and seeing what cases they post and reading the comments because comments. There's so many conversations that are happening there.
So I got to ask you this last question then, because I follow a lot of dentists. So I get a lot of teeth on my page and open mouth and bloody teeth. And I'm like, what are they posting? So it's so funny for me outside looking in, but for you, is that relevant? Is that something you could actually gather legitimate information from when you see some of the kind of progression of a case, or is that somebody talks through a case? I've seen some great videos, but is that where you actually gain real insight from?
Absolutely. Yes. I actually will share those posts to my associates. I have an associate group on Instagram. Okay. And we'll start a conversation on like, hey, what do you think about this case? And, we can talk via Instagram, which is nice. And there's photos and everything to relate to.
Very cool. Okay, cool. So they are relevant posts. And I'm like, why do they keep showing people's teeth? No, it's just because for the community of dentistry, for sure. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Jessica. And we appreciate it. We know you took time out of your day to give us some insight. And for those of you listening, we'll post how to get connected with Dr. An in our case notes, or excuse me, I say case notes, but in our podcast show notes. And Jessica, thank you so much. Have a great day. And any final words for the listeners?
No, just thanks to you, Steve, for having me as a guest. I appreciate it. I don't feel like I have much to share. So thank you so much for letting me, tell my story.
Absolutely. Well, for the Bridge Dental Podcast listeners, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.